Here are 11 waste of money fashion purchases to avoid. We are currently in sale season, and I want to remind myself some of the things that I want to avoid this year. I've been looking through my Depop at things I've sold, and while there are definitely some things I let go just because of my job and having duplicates, there are also things I let go of because they were bad decisions to begin with. And that is the category that I'm really focusing in on in today's video. How do we know if something's well designed? Well, one of the things that I look for is when the fabric and the style of clothing matches. I've spoken about this one in the past, but I recently came across something I sold. It was a 100% merino wool jumpsuit with a backless design. And what I have to say about this piece is that it is comfortable. The merino wool is actually top-notch in quality. It feels very soft on my skin. However, realistically, how many times am I going to be able to show off the open back when I've opted for a merino wool piece? This is a piece that is technically high quality in fabric. However, the fact that the fabric and style doesn't match just becomes a bit of a deal breaker. So in the summertime, it's obvious I wouldn't do silk or linen pieces lined with polyester. This is a personal pet peeve of mine because it just kind of makes that piece less comfortable than it should have been and less breathable than it should have been. And then I probably wouldn't do a thicker wool pant or a thicker wool blazer without a lining just because I'm not sure I want that wool on my skin, and also it feels appropriate for the season. That's something off the top of my head, but you get the point. For an item to be good quality, the fabric and the style have to make sense when they're together. Going off that, I also want to quickly mention natural fibers. I always recommend natural fibers as a really good way to build a very high quality wardrobe that will last. There are very occasionally a few times where something isn't completely natural fiber, maybe it's more of a blend, but it actually works really well for me because it makes sense for the piece. A quick example I can give you are a pair of cream trousers I have from Uniqlo. These are cream, so they get dirty after like every wear because I'm not particularly careful, so it goes through the wash a lot. The fact that this material doesn't need me to hand wash it and goes in the machine is super important because of the frequency at which it probably needs to be washed. If this was in silk or if it was in like 100% wool and needed to be dry cleaned or hand washed, I probably wouldn't wear it. So again, fabric and style, they have to match and be practical. The second thing that is always a waste of money because I just don't get wear from it are colors that are wrong for me. So I want to specifically talk about two colors. The first is bright white. It's bright white with an opaque fabric that is the worst for me because if it's sheer, then some of my skin tone will actually come through, softening the white. But when it's opaque, it's actually quite stark once I have it on. The other color mistake for me is a bright bubblegum pink. I'm looking at the things I've sold over the last 5 years and it's actually ridiculous how many times I've purchased bright bubblegum pink and then sold it. You know what? I like this color. I wouldn't even say I love bubblegum pink. It's just that it's also really eye-catching in stores. So sometimes it'll just catch my attention, and if I'm not intentional about my purchases, I might just go for it when there might have been a lot of reasons to stop myself from making that purchase. The thing is, most people can wear most colors. It's sometimes just a small shift in the undertone from cool to warm, from very bright in color to slightly more muted. This is the thing that can often change how flattering a color is on us. In my wardrobe now, I do go for cream, but I also go for medium to dark colors that I think look nice. And I'll also go for a lot of colors that are more neutral, slightly warm, as opposed to very warm or very cool. Statement pieces absolutely make a wardrobe, but something that I always find is a waste of money are when the statement or special pieces are not perfect. I kind of almost think of this like a scale. The more statement something is, the more perfect it has to be, because there are just so many louder details where if I don't love it, I'm just not gonna wear it. These pieces really need to look better than my everyday outfits, otherwise I might not go through the trouble of wearing them. Or they need to bring me enough joy because I just love the piece so much that I'm willing to put in the extra effort to wear it. I don't want to put in the effort and actually have it look worse than my typical everyday basics. A few years ago, I purchased a second-hand tweed denim jacket, and there are so many things I loved about it, but the thing that was wrong was the fit. It was a bit long, it was a bit too heavy and boxy, so eventually I would just stop wearing it because I felt like it looked better in my everyday pieces, and it would get pushed back, and I eventually sold it again. And this is like the perfect example of a piece that was kind of a waste of money and a waste of effort and time. Statement pieces, in my opinion, makes a wardrobe, but I just need to make sure that it is just right. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. The next two are kind of in the same category, but the first one are basics that are just boring. And boring is a very relative term. It usually means something doesn't really capture our style. A couple of years ago, I had this little crossbody bag bag. It was at a time where I was very drawn to minimalist designs. Think the Celine Trio bag. The more simple something is, the more I think all of these details matter. When I was trying to dupe this, I went for a bag that honestly had none of those details. It was just a little bit too generic for what I was looking for. With basic pieces, and I'm just using this bag as an example, because there are so few details, every detail does matter. From the texture to the zipper to the strap to the shape of it, all of these details just make up this piece, and you really can't afford to have these details be boring because there aren't that many to work with. Something that is a waste of money for me are clothing basics that don't fit well, and especially pieces that I already have in my wardrobe. So if it doesn't fit well, then it's just not going to hold up to the other pieces I have. And with basic pieces like your t-shirt, your jeans, your coat, there are so many brands that make them, so you can definitely shop around and find something ideal. With t-shirts, anything long line I don't wear. And that's just because for my style, I know that I tuck my tops in. So for jeans, it creates bulk. For dainty skirts, it's so unflattering to have that much fabric tucked in. And I would much prefer a crop t-shirt or something a little bit lighter, shorter, more versatile with the pieces I wear. With jeans, there are so many cuts and so many washes. I think it is well worthwhile to try on a range of styles before deciding which one's right for you. Every brand I know will do a navy or black coat, and I've had a lot of coats where the shoulders were either maybe a little bit too big, maybe it was a little bit too kind of compact, maybe it was a bit too fitted so I couldn't layer, maybe it was too thick or too straight or something. But once I found this coat from the curator that fit me well, I've kind of not looked at another one because the shape is so ideal. With basic pieces, they will shape every single outfit you wear and your everyday style. So if they're a little bit underwhelming, boring, or they don't fit well, then that's kind of going to translate into your everyday outfits. So find the details you like. Something that is a waste of money for me are very, very bulky sweaters or knitwear. The thing about this one is that it doesn't suit the climate I live in. I live in Sydney, and while we do have winter, it's not that cold. So with these bulkier pieces, I actually only get to wear them a few times a year, and they take up a lot of space in my very limited one-bedroom apartment. So for me, these are not really worth the money, because the cost per wear doesn't come down enough, and they're also not really worth the space just to wear it a few times a year. To make it worse, some of my chunkiest knitwear, they also have like holes and lace patterns in the design, and I mean, come on, that's just not practical. I don't know what I was thinking, but it hasn't always been the best cost per wear item. And I would say that if you get like a knitwear item that is thick and warm, but just a little bit less so and more everyday, it can just go much further. As we're on the topic of like heavy chunky knitwear pieces, I also want to talk about heaviness in terms of weight. Heavy bags, heavy shoes, heavy jackets, I avoid them. These are pieces not worth the money to me because I almost feel like they make my life harder than it needs to be. So with jackets, this is not about warmth. Sometimes I'll see a really warm jacket and it still manages to be light or medium, normal weight. Sometimes I'll see a jacket and it's just made from the heaviest, most impractical fabric. And the thing is, sometimes I'll take my jacket off and I'll have to lug around this jacket for the rest of the day. And it just doesn't seem very practical. Double face wool jackets are a really good example of something that can keep me very warm, but they're still very light and comfortable. With puffer jackets, I feel like at a lot of technical stores, they make them very light but very warm. And that's really ideal compared to something very bulky and heavy. With handbags, especially if you're looking for a medium or large bag, make sure they're light. As you fill that bag up, it will just get unbearably heavy, and these are never worth the money to me because I just won't use it. I'll reach for my simple tote that might not be as chic, but is more comfortable. The example I have here is the Mulberry Bayswater. My one's from a few years ago, so I don't know if they've changed the style, but oh my goodness, this bag is so heavy, and it's also big. As I feel it, it's actually ridiculous. So this is kind of a waste of money purchase because I just can't really get the wear I want from it. I bought a big bag because I want to carry more things, but the weight of it doesn't really allow me to do that. And then with shoes, this one kind of is obvious. I find it just a little bit more tiring. It takes a bit more effort for me to wear these heavier shoes, whereas something lighter just feels a lot easier. This one's self-explanatory, but I will kind of always look at the weight of a shoe, and anything that is like really, really heavy with those crazy chunky lug soles, isn't the most comfortable, practical to me. I want to spend money on the things that will allow me to dress well, be comfortable, and do that easily without dragging me down physically with like a ton of heavy pieces. We're on the topic of shoes, so let's just continue with that. Something that is not worth the money for me are shoes that don't work for my lifestyle. And they can be for a few reasons. Either they're honestly just a little bit too ugly. Secondly, they're too delicate. So they get damaged very easily and they just don't hold up to my lifestyle. With that is also longevity. When I can only wear a shoe for a few months, a year, it's just not worth the money to me. I'm gonna start with these shoes I had a few years ago. They were these mauve pink slides and honestly they were incredibly unflattering. This might be comfortable, but I am looking for something that is more elevating, and unfortunately styles that are just very clunky, very unflattering, I just want to avoid. The second type are shoes like this one. This is the Velvet Mary Jane from Douyin. This is the shoe for someone who never walks. I don't have a car, I walk absolutely everywhere, so my shoes need to hold up to a lot more than this. This is where looking at our lifestyle is so important. For someone who drives everywhere, this could actually be okay. You know, for some light walking, this could be fine, but definitely not for the kind of walking I do. The style is right here, but the longevity, the practicality just isn't here. I do believe it's possible to find shoes that both look good aesthetically and are practical for our lifestyle. For me, this is usually in terms of chunkier loafers. They've got that figure sole, they're a bit more sturdy, and they hold up well. I also think about my different boots, like my barefoot wear boots, my De Francis boots. I've had these De Francis boots for coming on 3-4 years, 4-5 years, and they still look perfect. And so many boots in the past haven't worked as well because I'll choose something too dainty for the amount of walking I do. Something I shared in my last video that I think is a really good thing to look for are shoes where the sole will extend over the upper. I've looked at a lot of my shoes over the years that haven't held up, and this is really often the deciding factor. If the shoe extends over the sole and it kind of protrudes out, it will easily get a scuff on it when you kick on something. And these shoes, they never last well. Pay attention and check this when you're buying shoes, especially if you're buying a pair of everyday shoes you expect to do a lot of walking in. This one can be surprising, but a category in my wardrobe that has not worked for me is when I've tried to purchase heritage, classic things that are made with the very best quality. There are definitely brands that specialize in this, and let me kind of explain why I don't think this is a good purchase for my wardrobe. One of the things I love most is playing around with aesthetic and trying to create different vibe, trying to match different colors, different styles together. And with these heritage pieces, they're often very simple in design, and that doesn't quite work with the looks I'm trying to achieve. So even though they're such good quality in the last years, I don't even reach for it often enough for it to really matter. It's really worthwhile looking at your style words. I really love Alison's system of finding your style words, and since my words are not heritage, they're not classic, it kind of explains why these pieces aren't working for me. They don't align with my style. I like that playfulness, that experimentation that some modern brands have, and it's simply not really there with these styles, even though the quality I love and is top notch. Clothing pieces that are often not worth the purchase for me is when they fall too extreme in silhouette. So on the extreme end of oversize or the extreme end of clingy or bodycon. And the reason here is because sometimes these will lean into trends or they will just be too bold for my everyday style. So this is one of those tips where you gotta look at your personal style, and depending on where your style falls, this could be different for everyone. Some people will really do well with those extreme silhouettes, whereas my style is more simple every day, so it doesn't work as well for me. I also just really love to mix and match. That's probably my favorite part of getting ready. So I want pieces that will have that additional versatility. When I was scrolling through the things I sold on Depop, a lot of them also fell into this category. Too clingy, too oversized, and not versatile enough. The final thing I want to share in today's video is probably the most important tip. And it's all about not wasting your money, your time, your resources on clothing that is only designed to last a season or a year or won't have longevity. I really want to adopt this approach of building on my wardrobe every year. So let's just say last year I purchased a navy coat. I want to be wearing that for the next 5, and if I do add something else to my wardrobe, to make sure that it's different and we're building on my wardrobe and not just simply replacing things. When I think about replacing things, I often think about it like I'm spending money and time and effort to look the same as I did last year. And something about that just doesn't really sit right with me. I do enjoy browsing, I do enjoy looking for things, but I do want to add to my style, elevate it, add to my wardrobe, have fun with it, and not just be focused on repeating this cycle where I'm replacing things all the time. So this obviously comes with finding pieces that are higher quality, maybe searching for a bit longer, looking for a bit longer before we pick the right piece. And then the other part is just making sure you know your shape and you know your colors and you know your style well enough and you've done your research, so you really make decisions that are informed and you don't let what is in the shops shape what is in your wardrobe. When you've done all of this research, you can better assess whether something is going to work for you or not. Whereas if you just look at the stores, then sometimes we just let our trends make us think that we need something or make us think that something is right for us when it might not actually be. If you enjoyed today's video, I would love you to go give it a thumbs up and also check out some of my other videos on my channel. I am filming a few extra videos this month, so I will see you very soon. Bye.